this is Sarita Roche, and I want to share with you my dresser makeover. So I found this dresser. It was in great condition, solid wood, dovetail drawers. It had been well cared for. I think we've all had one of these dressers in our life at some time. Nothing wrong with it, just a little bit simple. So we cleaned it up, we inspected it, and we decided that there wasn't really any major things to do to it. So we got to work. We started by putting a good primer down. We didn't want to scuff up the surface like you could do. We used this great product called Slick Stick from Dixie Belle. It's a primer that sticks to glossy surfaces. And so far with my furniture rehabs, this primer has been great. It really adheres and gives a great texture to the piece. So the next thing I used was this BB Frosch Paint Transformer. What this does is it turns any latex or acrylic paint into chalk paint. You just put a couple of tablespoons of this powder mixed with like a tablespoon and a half of water. You mix it up into a paste. And once you have that mixed together, you can add any latex paint. So I added this satin latex paint from Benjamin Moore, about 8 ounces, and it gives it that chalk paint finish so that you don't have to buy every color of chalk paint that you want to use. So I just laid it on. So far I'm really liking the BB Frosch. It has a great adherence, a nice texture. I covered the whole piece in this sandy color. And I wanted it, this is going to be a nautical theme, so I just wanted the base to have this warm, sandy color, kind of reminiscent of sand. I keep saying sandy. So we just, did 2 coats over the entire thing. My daughter helped me. She loves to be in there with me. And one of the reasons I picked this particular color is that I wanted it to be light enough that when I did the next step, which is to put a furniture transfer, that it would not darken the transfer, but dark enough to be reminiscent of sand. So here's the transfer that I used. It's this ocean transfer, and it doesn't look all scuffed up like that in the actual transfer. It comes in these 3 rectangular pieces, which is perfect when you have 3 dresser drawers. So I just started at the bottom and I worked my way up. Now my intention was that I would let it bleed over the edge of the dresser drawer and then onto that little middle piece that is in between the dressers. But I figured out really quick that because of the way the dresser drawer was, when I cut it, it didn't cover the entire middle piece there. So that wasn't the best way to put this on. So for the next one, I didn't bother about trying to make it go up and cut it on that middle piece. I just covered as much of the drawer as I could, and then that was it. Because of the way these drawers were shaped, some of the composition, kind of rolls over and rolls under, so you didn't see the whole composition, and that was fine. I had already decided I would use paint to fix any of that. You can see I'm using a tool here to get that transfer on there, push out any bubbles, make sure it has good adherence. It's a very, very thin kind of paper, very sticky, sticks very, very well. And when you push out the bubbles, you can see it really, adheres like staticky to the furniture. So I pulled off the backing and I just kept working it with the tool, making sure every little piece was touching a piece of the drawer. And it has such a nice look. It looks just like it's been freshly painted, which I loved. The only thing I didn't like about this particular transfer, which I kind of mentioned, was that the edges look scuffed up on the packaging, but it isn't actually scuffed up. So there's a very hard edge on the sides. And I didn't feel confident to scuff it up myself. I wasn't sure if the actual material would rip if I tried to sand it or if I tried to use an X-Acto knife. So I had decided, okay, I'll just line it up centered on each dresser drawer, as you can see me doing, working it slowly, getting those bubbles out. And then once it was all on there and I felt like, you know, it was well adhered, then I could add paint to kind of fill in those areas on the sides of the dresser that didn't have any of the design. One of the things I don't like about this is that the backing is actually bigger than the design itself. So it was a little bit weird when I was trying to measure it on there. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I personally would have preferred if the backing lined up with the edge of the actual transfer. So this is what it looked like when it was all on there. Right under the top drawer, there is no transfer, so I was gonna have to paint that in. I learned quickly. So I took BB Frosch again and some water and some small cups, and I just went and I got a whole bunch of colors that I thought were reminiscent in the transfer from my acrylic, professional acrylic painting collection. I took the powder and I took some of those acrylics and I mixed them in a cup with water. You can see here one of the blues that I did. What I liked about this is that the heavy body of the acrylic paint got liquefied a little, so that as I laid it onto the dresser, you didn't see the texture of the paint. And I was able to really work it in layers, kind of almost like a halfway towards a watercolor texture, because I really wanted to match the colors that were in the original transfer, and that took a little bit of finagling. So I had several different acrylic paints all mixed with that BB Frosch Paint Transformer to give it that chalk paint consistency. And then I just took my brushes and I went in there and I filled in wherever I needed to fill in. Here I'm putting a little detailing of a seagull just to kind of bring it together. And because some of the composition of the transfer was lost over the edge of the dresser drawers, that I kind of compensated for that a little bit. Like you could not see the top of the little mountain because it went over the edge of the second drawer. So I just imagined what it would look like, and I just painted in a facsimile of that little mountain you can see here. And then I just, because it is supposed to look distressed, I added a bunch of distressing in colors that I thought coordinated with the overall composition. It was really fun to kind of mimic the original painting and add to it and blend. I was nervous, I'll be honest. I wasn't sure how my execution would be, but the more I played with it, the more comfortable I got, and I was just able to soften that straight edge of the transfer. I used napkins, I used brushes, I used sponges, all kinds of little things just to break up the hard edge and to give it a little bit of distressing. And, you know, I didn't realize how fun it would be to pick out all the colors, and all the colors that I didn't expect to find in the transfer. Like, for example, lavender. There's a lot of lavender that I hadn't expected, and indigo. So that was really fun. I had a great day just filling in those edges, softening the hard edge of the transfer. And in the end, I really love how it's looking. It's got a distressed feel, but it's soft, it's romantic. Then I decided, okay, now we need to work on the body. So I mixed up some more acrylic paint, very, very liquid, with a little bit of that BB Frosch Paint Transformer as well. And my intention was to just smear it on almost like a glaze. I was not trying to get full coverage. I just wanted to almost give a grain to the piece. And then I did the same thing with some Payne's Gray. It was not quite as thin as the brown, so I used a brush and then I just pulled it off with a napkin. I wanted it to kind of have that aged beech wood look. So you can see the grain and you can see how it's darkening, it's aging, and I was really happy. It actually came out better than I expected, to be honest. It really looks like a different kind of wood rather than just a simple pine. The last thing that I did was I took some latex paint and I dry brushed it onto a wet top. So I wanted it to be super, super thin so that you could see all of that fake grain through the white. So I just kept it wet so that it wouldn't dry thick, and I worked it back and forth. I have this really great brush from Dixie Belle. It's called the Best Dang Brush. It was perfect for this because it has enough of a bristle that it kept it streaky, and I was able to really give it that whitewashed look. And I just kept working it. It was not difficult. It did not take a long time. It took more time just staring at it, deciding I was going to take the next step than actually doing the next step. But I love how it looks. It looks worn. It looks, oh, okay, well, here we are. I decided I wanted to keep the hardware. So I took this metallic paint from Deco Art, which is actually made for furniture. I've never used it for furniture before. And I decided I was gonna put a coat, not an even coat, kind of a scratchy, distressed coat. So I put it on and I wiped it off so that you could see some of the original bronze through. But I love this metallic, and it really adhered well to the hardware. I'm pleasantly surprised. And I did seal that in a clear coat of Dixie Belle's satin clear coat. So here it is. I took the drawers. I always like to line my drawers. I like to use self-adhesive wallpaper because it's a little bit thicker and you can wipe it down if it gets dirty. So I just went ahead and pulled that adhesive. This one was actually quite sticky, and the backing was having a hard time coming off. But I love the way it just finishes the inside of that drawer. And it's thicker than like a contact paper, but it doesn't have that plastic feel. So it's gonna really keep the inside of that drawer nice and clean and smooth, and it's gonna adhere for a very long time. So once I had done that with all the drawers, we decided to go ahead and put a clear coat with that Dixie Belle satin clear coat over the rest of the piece, over the transfers. That's what really seals those furniture transfers in. It's a form of decoupage. So I want to be sure that whoever gets this dresser is going to know that it's not going to just like chip or peel. And then we went ahead and put those blue hardware back on. I'm really happy that I decided to keep the original hardware. They look great in this blue metallic. And here we are, da, 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 all done. I have transformed it from, it was a great pine, simple wood dresser before, and now it has this nautical, aged, distressed look. I really love it, and I think someone is gonna love it as much as me.